What if no one ever sees the hardest thing you've ever done? What if the most powerful chapter of your life is written in a room with no witnesses, no camera, no one cheering you forward? And what if that is exactly the way it is supposed to be? We are living in a generation that has confused sharing with growing, where posting about the goal has replaced actually pursuing it, where looking like you are working has somehow become more important than the work itself. And most people don't even notice it is happening to them. They open the app, they make the announcement, they feel the rush, and then quietly, slowly, the fire dies. Not because they were weak, but because they spent the flame before the wood ever caught. This video is not about going viral. It is not about personal branding or content strategy or how to grow on social media. This is about something far more rare, something that Napoleon Hill understood nearly a century ago, and something that the most powerful people in every room around you practice daily without ever talking about it. This is about building yourself quietly, deeply, relentlessly, in the silence that most people are too afraid to sit in. Because here is what almost no one will tell you. The version of you that changes your life will not be announced. It will not be performed. It will be built brick by brick in the hours no one sees and in the rooms no one enters. And by the time the world notices what you have become, the work will already be done. If that idea speaks to something inside of you, stay with me. Because what comes next is going to shift the way you see yourself, your goals, your silence, and your path forward. Let us talk about why most people never become what they were capable of becoming. It is not laziness, though that plays a role. It is not a lack of resources, though people love to use that excuse. The real reason is simpler and more uncomfortable. Most people get the feeling of progress without doing the work of progress. They announce the dream, they feel seen, they receive a small rush of validation, and somewhere in their nervous system, the drive to actually pursue it gets quieter. The brain is efficient. If it receives the reward before the effort, it stops treating the goal as urgent. And just like that, without any dramatic failure, without any visible breakdown, the dream quietly fades into the background while life continues on the surface. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying the wealthiest, most accomplished people of his era. He sat with industrialists, thinkers, inventors, and leaders. And one of the patterns he noticed, one of the threads that ran through nearly all of them, was this: they guarded what they were building, not out of arrogance, not out of fear, but because they understood at a cellular level that premature exposure is one of the most dangerous threats to any vision in its early stages. A seed does not grow faster because you dig it up to check on it. It grows in the dark, in the soil, away from interference. And the moment you pull it into the open before it is ready, you kill it. Your goals are no different. When you announce what you are working on before it has taken root, you invite the world into a process that was never meant to be public. You invite comparison, skepticism, unsolicited advice, doubt, and the subtle weight of other people's expectations. And the most dangerous thing you let in is not even criticism from others. It is the shift in your own mind. Suddenly, you are no longer building for yourself. You are building for an audience. You are performing growth instead of living it. And performance, by its very nature, is about optics. And optics will always work against depth. Real depth happens when no one is watching. Real growth happens when there is no applause to chase. Real transformation happens when the only voice you are answering to is the one inside you that says, "I am not done yet." So the first thing you need to do, the very first step on the path of building yourself quietly, is to stop using your goals as content. Stop looking for external confirmation that you are on the right path. Start becoming someone who doesn't need that confirmation. Because here is the thing: confidence that depends on applause is not confidence. It is performance. And performance collapses when the audience leaves. But the person who builds quietly, who moves in silence, who does the work without needing a witness, that person develops something that no amount of validation can give you. They develop inner certainty, and that is worth everything. The next critical idea I want you to sit with is this: privacy is not weakness. In a culture that glorifies radical transparency, that rewards oversharing and punishes boundaries, We have been taught somewhere along the way that keeping things private is suspicious, or cold, or a sign that something is wrong. But the truth is the exact opposite. Privacy is one of the most sophisticated forms of self discipline available to you. Think about it this way: every goal you share with the wrong person costs you something. Every plan you lay out in front of someone who does not share your vision drains something from you. It is not always visible, it is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just a small comment, a raised eyebrow, a tone in someone's voice that says, "Really, you think you can do that?" And that micro moment plants a seed of doubt that can quietly grow into hesitation, second guessing, and eventually paralysis. The people who protect their process understand this. They have learned, sometimes through painful experience, that not every person deserves access to what they are building, not because they are secretive or antisocial, but because they understand that the creative and transformative process is sacred. It is tender. It requires protection. The same way you would not walk someone through a surgery in the middle of performing it, you do not walk the world through your transformation while it is happening. Let your results be the announcement. Let the outcome be the story. Until then, keep the process close. Keep it clean. Keep it yours. Stay with me, because this next part is the one most people skip, and it is the reason they keep starting over. We talk a lot about motivation, about inspiration, about mindset shifts and morning routines, and all of those things have their place. But what actually separates the people who build something real from the people who always seem to be on the verge of it, what makes the actual difference, is something quieter and less glamorous. It is the daily decision to show up without a reason to. Not because you feel inspired, not because someone is watching, not because the results are showing yet, but simply because you made a commitment to yourself and you are honoring it. That is what discipline actually is. Not the dramatic, eye catching kind. Not the kind that posts a 5 a.m. alarm clock or a before and after photo. The kind that happens in the unglamorous middle of every journey, where no one is paying attention and nothing is changing yet on the outside, even though everything is shifting on the inside. Napoleon Hill wrote about this concept in a way that most people gloss over. He talked about the power of a definite chief aim, not just a vague wish or a hopeful idea, but a clearly defined purpose that you return to every single day with complete commitment. He understood that most people, not because their dream was too big, but because their daily commitment to it was too fragile. They were inconsistent, not because they were weak people, but because they never made the internal decision that said, "This is non negotiable. This is who I am now." When your discipline becomes an expression of your identity rather than just a behavior you are trying to maintain, everything changes. You stop negotiating with yourself every morning. You stop waiting for the right mood to begin. You stop treating effort like something you do when conditions are perfect. You start treating it the way you treat breathing: non optional, daily, automatic. And that kind of discipline, built quietly, sustained without applause, compounded over time, is what produces transformations that the world calls overnight success. It is not overnight. It is 100 quiet mornings, 1,000 late nights, 10,000 small choices made in rooms with no audience. But from the outside looking in, it looks like something just suddenly clicked. And it did, but only after a very long time of silent, invisible work. Let us talk about the comparison trap, because this one is particularly dangerous in the world we are living in right now. Every day you are exposed to thousands of images, updates, announcements, and highlight reels from other people's lives. And at some level, even when you know intellectually that you are only seeing the curated surface, your emotional brain doesn't always register the difference. You see someone's breakthrough and you feel behind. You see someone's success and you feel insufficient. You see someone's confidence and you wonder what is wrong with you. And this happens not because you are weak or jealous. It happens because comparison is a built-in human mechanism. We are wired to assess our position relative to others. It is survival instinct repurposed in a world it was never designed for. The problem is that comparison, when applied to the highlight reels of strangers on the internet, is not just useless, it is actively destructive. It pulls your attention away from your own path and toward someone else's. It replaces your unique timeline with someone else's schedule. It takes your specific, personal, irreplaceable vision and makes you question it simply because it doesn't look like what is being celebrated online this week. Here is what you have to understand about your journey. It does not have a standardized timeline. There is no universal schedule for when you are supposed to break through, level up, or become who you are meant to be. The person you are comparing yourself to is running a completely different race on a completely different track with completely different circumstances, history, gifts, and lessons. Measuring yourself against them is not ambition, it is confusion. The most powerful question you can ask yourself is not where are they and why am I not there yet? The most powerful question is where was I a year ago and how far have I come? Because when you measure your progress against your past self instead of someone else's present, something shifts. The noise quiets. The jealousy fades. The urgency to be seen matching someone else's pace dissolves. And what replaces it is something much more useful. It is clarity. A clear, grounded sense of what you are building, why it matters, and what the next step is. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are in the process. And the process has its own pace that you cannot rush without compromising the depth of what you are building. So the practice is this. Every time you catch yourself scrolling and comparing, redirect. Not with shame, not with frustration, just redirect. Come back to your own page, your own plan, your own mission. Ask yourself, what brick can I lay today? Not what brick did someone else lay and show the world. What can I build quietly right now in my own lane? Do this enough times and the comparison habit starts to lose its grip. Not because you have become arrogant or disconnected, but because you have become so focused on your own work that other people's updates simply stop being that relevant. You are too deep in the building to stop and compare blueprints. Now let us talk about what actually happens when you build in silence long enough. Because there is a moment, and you will know it when you arrive there, where something shifts in the way you carry yourself, where the doubt that used to live loudly in your head gets quieter, where the urge to explain yourself to people who didn't ask fades away, where the need for external validation just stops feeling urgent, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Napoleon Hill described this as the development of what he called personal initiative, the internal force that moves you forward without needing to be pushed. And what I find remarkable about this idea is how it directly connects to silence. Because personal initiative is almost impossible to develop when you are constantly seeking permission from the outside world. When you are always checking to see if others approve of your direction before you take the next step, you are outsourcing your instinct. An outsourced instinct is not instinct at all. It is performance. The person who builds quietly, who consistently does the work without waiting for permission or applause, develops something that cannot be faked. They develop an internal compass, a deep, earned sense of direction that doesn't need to be validated because it is rooted in consistent private action rather than public performance. And that compass, once calibrated, guides them through the hardest seasons of the journey. The seasons when the results are not yet visible, when the feedback is absent or negative, when the path feels uncertain and the timeline unclear. Most people quit in those seasons, not because the dream was wrong or the effort was insufficient, but because they had trained themselves to rely on external signals for motivation. And when those signals go quiet, they have nothing to move them forward. The person who builds quietly has learned to move without signals. They have internalized the mission. And that internalization is what keeps them standing when everything around them says stop. Here is the other thing that happens when you build in silence. The work gets better, not because silence is magical, but because when no one is watching, you stop trying to make it look good and you start trying to make it actually good. The pressure to perform for an audience is also the pressure to sacrifice depth for palatability, to simplify what should be complex, to rush what should take time, to polish the surface and neglect the foundation. When you remove the audience, you remove that pressure. And what you are left with is just you and the work. And in that space, you get honest. You get rigorous. You get demanding of yourself in the best possible way. Because the only standard you are meeting is your own. And your own standard, when you are building quietly, tends to be higher than anything the world would have required of you. This is one of the most underrated benefits of private growth. Not just that the results come, but that the results are deeper, more durable, more authentically yours when they arrive. You did not build them for likes. You did not shape them around trends or feedback loops. You built them because they mattered. And work built on that foundation has a kind of solidity that produced for the audience work almost never achieves. Let us get practical for a moment, because all of this is philosophy until you decide what to do with it today. What does building quietly actually look like in a real life? It looks like waking up before the house is loud and doing the one thing that matters most without telling anyone you did it. It looks like reading the book no one recommended to you because you decided your own education matters. It looks like practicing the skill in private long before you would ever feel ready to display it publicly. It looks like saying no to the social plan that was never going to move you forward and saying yes to the 2 quiet hours in the evening that will. It looks like journaling your thoughts instead of posting them, like setting a goal and keeping it between you and the page, like training your body without needing to document the results, like building your business plan in the margin of every spare hour without asking whether anyone else thinks it is a good idea. It is 1,000 small, quiet choices made with full intention and zero audience. And yes, it is uncomfortable because we are social creatures and silence can feel like isolation. But there is a difference between the isolation that comes from fear and the solitude that comes from focus. Isolation is running from connection. Solitude is choosing depth over noise. And when you choose solitude with purpose, it is not loneliness, it is sanctuary. Create space in your life that belongs only to the mission. Space that is not documented, not shared, not performed, space that is just yours. And watch what grows in that space. Because things grow differently when they are not being watched. They grow according to their own nature, rather than according to the shape of the audience's expectations. And what grows according to its own nature tends to be extraordinary. Now, I want to address something that comes up every time we talk about building quietly, and it is this. What about the people around you? What about the relationships, the community, the support systems? Is building quietly the same as going at it alone? No, and this distinction matters deeply. Building quietly is not about pushing people out of your life. It is not about becoming a ghost or treating every relationship as a distraction. There are people in your life who have earned access to your process, people who will protect what you are building rather than interfere with it, who will challenge you in ways that make the work better rather than in ways that make you doubt yourself, who will show up with honesty and care and genuine investment in your becoming. Those people are not to be kept out. They are to be treasured and carefully chosen. The silence is not for them. The silence is for the noise, for the opinions of people who have no stake in your success, for the scrolling and the comparing and the performing, for the energy spent seeking validation from audiences that were never going to give you what you actually need, for the explanations you owe to people who never asked to understand your vision in the first place. The choice is not between isolation and noise. The choice is between intention and accident, between choosing who has access to your process and simply leaving the door open to whoever wanders in. Guard the door. Let the right people in. Keep the others at a respectful distance and build something real in the space that protects. We are now at a place in this journey where I want to bring it back to the single most important idea, the one that ties everything together, the one that Napoleon Hill understood and that the most quietly powerful people around you practice every single day. Your energy is a resource. And like all resources, it is finite. It is exhaustible. And how you spend it determines everything about what you are capable of building. Every time you seek validation, you spend energy. Every time you compare yourself to someone online, you spend energy. Every time you over-explain your choices to people who weren't asking, you spend energy. Every time you refresh a post to see how many people responded, you spend energy. And not a little, a lot. More than most people realize, because these habits are so woven into the daily routine that they feel like neutral behavior. They feel like nothing. But they are not nothing. They are the quiet drain that explains why so many people feel exhausted by noon and wonder why they never seem to have enough in the tank for the thing that actually matters. When you protect your energy, when you redirect it away from the noise and back into the work, something almost miraculous happens. Not immediately, but gradually and then suddenly as the pattern continues. You find that you have more in reserve than you ever thought you did, that the capacity you were looking for was always there. It was just being spent on the wrong things. Napoleon Hill talked about the concept of a mastermind. Two or more minds working in harmony toward a definite purpose. And one of the qualities of a true mastermind alliance is that the energy is never wasted. It is directed, amplified, protected. That is the relationship you need to develop with your own focus. Treat your attention like a mastermind. Only invite into it the things that amplify your purpose. Decline everything else. This is not arrogance. This is stewardship. Stewardship of the most powerful resource you have, which is your focused, undivided attention on the work that matters most. So here is the summary. Here is the distillation of everything we have covered, brought down to the clearest possible form. Stop using your goals as content. Let the work be private until the results are undeniable. Build the habit of doing the work without needing to announce it. Practice discipline not as something you do, but as something you are. Stop measuring your progress against other people's highlight reels and start measuring against your own past. Protect your energy like the finite, precious resource it is. Choose solitude over noise when the mission calls for depth. Let the right people in. Keep the rest at a distance. And when the results finally arrive, when the work speaks for itself in a way the world cannot ignore, you will understand why the silence was never weakness. It was the strategy, the foundation, the soil where everything real was grown. The world you're building is not built in the announcement. It is not built in the applause. It is not built in the viral moment or the comment section or the follower count. It is built in the moments no one ever sees, in the quiet, relentless, obsessive commitment to becoming someone worthy of what you are building. The lion does not practice its power for an audience. It simply carries it. And when the moment requires it, the power speaks for itself. You are in the process of becoming something the world has not yet seen. Not the version of you that posts about transformation, the version that actually undergoes it, quietly, daily, without needing permission or applause or an audience. Keep going in the silence. Keep building in the dark. Because the best breakthroughs in your life will not announce themselves. They will arrive as the quiet, inevitable result of all the work no one ever saw you do. If this message found you today and something in it moved something in you, then I want you to know that this is exactly what we do at Alpha Logic. Every week we go deep on the ideas, the philosophy, and the practical strategies that help you build a life that actually matches what you are capable of. Not just what looks good on the surface, but what is genuinely, deeply yours. Hit subscribe and join the community that builds in silence and speaks through results. We are only getting started, and the next video is going to take this even further. I will see you there.